All right, we begin today with the Honourable Louise Upston, who is the Minister of many things, but in today's context, she is wearing her hat as the Minister of Tourism and Hospitality, which of course is crucial to the New Zealand economy and took a devastating hit during COVID and then in the years that followed as people shut their wallets amid high interest rates. But we have heard that there are some green shoots. I think, to Mike's point, it is a tall order to ask an economist to make us all cheerful, but we will certainly charge Gareth with that a little bit later. Louise has also been the MP for Taupō since 2008, so she sees the importance of tourism and hospitality up close in her electorate. Please join me in giving the Honourable Louise Upston a very warm welcome.
Well, kia ora everybody, and it's fantastic to be joining you here this morning to speak at Recon 25. I think you've got a really exciting program, and I heard from about some of the speakers coming, you then think, gosh, do I really have to fly back to Wellington? Can't I just stay here and hang out and hear some of those great speakers? But I think you're going to have a really insightful day, and I think the challenge has also been laid down that drinks are at 5, sharp, not a minute later. But I do want to thank Leonie Freeman. You do an amazing job as a CEO of the Property Council, and we have crossed paths many times over many years, and I know what an extraordinary job you do for this organisation. I also want to shout out to my former parliamentary colleague and friend Denise Lee and Leonard. Where is Leonard? Happy birthday. Leonard has worked in Parliament, so I know him from days gone by. But I know in terms of the program that you've got before you, in terms of retail's next chapter, for each and every one of you that will mean different challenges, different opportunities. But I do think it is really important to have the opportunity to come together and share what that might look like and how you can learn and grow from one another. I want to just acknowledge the importance of retail trade to New Zealand's economy, noting that in the June 2025 quarter, the total volume of retail sales was $25 billion, a slight increase in the previous quarter's results, probably for many of you not enough of an increase, but still an increase nonetheless. And it is great to see green shoots of recovery starting to spread across our provincial centres, and then that will spread to our cities like Auckland as well. I heard a really great analogy about green shoots today, because I think some of us get excited when we hear about green shoots. If you think about green shoots in your garden, it doesn't mean that you have a lettuce that you can pluck to make a salad. So the unfortunate reality is when we see the green shoots, we have to be patient and nurture them and know they will grow in time. But I think that was because so often we talk about green shoots and people are like, really? Seriously? Where is it? I ain't feeling it. So I do think it is important, and feels like I'm preaching to the choir and saying that, because you would know that very sharply. But what it does, come on the back of, as the speakers before me have said, is some incredibly trying times. And one of the advantages of having been a local MP for the number of years I have is you see the cycles. You see it in your retail areas probably the most sharply. And so you know when the retail sector is hurting. And so I acknowledge that that's exactly the sorts of challenges you have traversed. What I do want to say, though, is at the start of this year, Prime Minister Christopher Luxon came out very strongly and said this year, as a government, we are absolutely focused on growth. That is the work that we are doing to shift New Zealand into a faster growth track. So yes, you could say in terms of economic cycles it will follow, but actually what we need to do as a government is drive that harder and faster. So there's a range of measures that we're doing to drive better productivity and therefore contribute to the rising incomes and creating greater opportunities for New Zealanders. Some of the changes that will specifically help your sector is the great work that Chris Penk has been doing around the earthquake-prone building rules to take a more risk-based approach. This will reduce the costs to repair buildings and reinvigorate local communities, and to have Auckland and Northland entirely removed from the system must be a massive relief for those of you involved in those two regions. There's also changes to the Commerce Act to provide greater protection for the public and more certainty for business, including stopping unfair tactics like creeping acquisitions and predatory pricing, as well as providing clearer merger rules. There's an express lane for new supermarkets to boost competition, and a great announcement yesterday with another Costco site coming, which is all about how do we ensure better deals for Kiwi shoppers, and the fast-track status for new supermarkets. We've also set up a ministerial advisory group for the victims of retail crime, and they've provided a series of recommendations to clamp down on retail crime that we are actioning currently. But let me focus on my priorities as the Minister for Tourism and Hospitality. And I've been clear since I got this job in January that there are two clear priorities. One is to increase the value of exports by 2035. And in order to do that, we have to increase the number of visitors to New Zealand back to the numbers we were in 2019, pre-COVID. So we're currently sitting at 88%, which is actually a better result than people were forecasting at the start of the year. And the second very clear priority is to have more New Zealanders working in tourism and hospitality. So that is a significant part of what I want to see. And the guts of it is, I see my job as increasing the number of customers for New Zealand businesses. And if I think about retail in Taupō, for example, so many of those shops would not survive if Taupō didn't have visitors, whether domestic or international. And I remember going into several shops on this particular occasion saying, you know, and one of them was a frock shop, as my mother would have called it, a woman's clothing shop. And I said, how much of your business is local versus visitors? She said 25% was local, and I was absolutely staggered. So it is clear to me that those in the retail sector are desperate for us to lift the number of international visitors and to grow tourism so that we have more customers for your business. So after Budget 2025, I launched a tourism growth roadmap, 10-year plan of how we get to those numbers, because there's no point in having targets unless you've actually got a plan to get there. Big focus at the moment is on demand. We've got to get the numbers back. We've got to make sure they're coming back strongly. But we also have to focus on some of the fundamental supply side issues as well. Some of you will remember 2019, it felt like in some parts of New Zealand we were getting the speed wobbles with the numbers of international visitors. So at the same time as driving numbers up, we do have to focus on the underlying issues, which is why I've launched a substantial review of the tourism systems. We need to build the foundations, whether it's around quality, whether it's around funding, whether it's around workforce, at the same time that we are growing the numbers. But the tourism growth roadmap's already delivering results, and I just want to give you one example. So the Everyone Must Go campaign, which was mocked at the time, let's be fair, but actually it delivered beyond expectations. This was a campaign when I first came into the job, I said to the industry leaders, what can we do fast that will immediately increase the number of visitors? Tell me what you need. It was really clear we had to focus on Australia, we had to do it fast, we had to offer deals. They were the closest and they were the ones that would make decisions quickly. So that campaign attracted just under 8,000 additional visitors from Australia over the autumn period. It generated $22 million worth of bookings. And the best part of it was what you can achieve with industry collaboration. There were over 800 deals and 450 different operators across New Zealand in accommodation transport experiences that came to the table. So it's these sorts of initiatives that will mean we've got more visitors, we've got more people in our restaurants, we've got more people shopping in our shops, and that's what creates more jobs and, of course, is great for the economy. So we do have to focus, as I said, both on demand and supply. And then in September, with the Prime Minister, we launched the biggest ever investment into major events in tourism with a $70 million package. And that's been allocated across 4 projects, significantly about event attractions, getting new events that we've never had to New Zealand, or going outside the existing criteria that the major events have. Also tourism infrastructure. We're doing another round of a regional tourism boost, which is actually how do we have regions collaborating together rather than continuing to compete with one another. So we actually focus on getting international visitors to choose New Zealand ahead of Australia or Japan or Indonesia. And then just last week, I announced with the Prime Minister that we're bringing the Michelin Guide to New Zealand. First ever foray into Oceania. And you know what the best part this week has been? Watching the Australian stories in the Australian media and how they are squirming because New Zealand got Michelin and they didn't. And it is fascinating to see the number of visitors who choose Michelin restaurants as a way to choose which country they visit. So it's not going to be one thing that increases the number of visitors, but multiple things that we are doing with the sector to turn the dial. More importantly though, the Michelin Guide, that was a suggestion that came out of the sector. So in November last year, there was a hospitality summit in Parliament, and out of that summit was a report and recommendations of how could we grow the hospitality sector. One of those was the Michelin Guide. And they'd said at the time, it was like pie in the sky, absolutely pie in the sky, didn't think it would happen. And then again, when I became the minister and sat with industry leaders, sat with Hospitality New Zealand and Restaurants Association, and said, what is the one thing that we could do that would significantly move the dial? And they said Michelin. So I said to Tourism New Zealand, right, let's go. Go hard, get it here. And it is amazing that within 12 months of that being suggested by the sector, we got it over the line. And that is, to me, an example of how our government, with the Prime Minister's very clear direction, listen to industry, work with industry, they know what the solutions are, so make sure you are working with them to improve our growth opportunities. So I know it's been challenging times. I do want to reassure you that the government is focused on as many levers as possible to help you grow your businesses, because without you growing your businesses, we don't get to provide greater opportunities for New Zealanders to be in work or in more work, or to earn higher incomes and to look after themselves and their families. So it's great to be with you. I'm really pleased that you're going to have some concentrated time on, what the next opportunities are for retail, and I look forward to hearing what some of those suggestions are. Thank you.
Let's just check that that's working. Hello everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Denise Lee, the Head of Advocacy here at Property Council, and it's my pleasure to coordinate some questions for you, Minister. So if you're in the audience and you haven't had a chance to look on your app at Slido, that's where you can engage and throw your questions in here. Better yet, if you like someone else's question, just press the old thumbs up and it'll raise it up to the top, and it certainly helps me with choosing what floats up to the top. And we already have one, and it's around the Michelin Guide. And it is very much exciting news, Minister. Thanks for all that you've done in that space. Are there plans to expand that to the smaller regions?
Yes, so for those of you who may not be aware, we have focused on Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch and Queenstown. And part of this was, when Michelin first come to New Zealand, there's a discussion to say we're interested. They come and have a look and first of all say, you're near the bar or no, you're nowhere near it. And part of that is, where is the concentration of restaurants? Where is it going to be, bluntly, economically viable for us to support that? So you could imagine the investment would be greater if we had more locations involved. So we've started with 4. It's not to say that we won't go to more destinations in the future, because I know all of you in the room will know of places outside those 4 centres, but we wanted to start with a solid offering. The other thing that I do want to just correct, because there's a lot of people who've said, why is all of this taxpayer money going into the Michelin Guide? The majority of it is from the International Visitor Levy, which is the fee that visitors pay when they come to New Zealand. So very little of it is actually taxpayer money.
All right, we've got a room full of people who know how to upvote, and I'm definitely going to go with at least 20 people.
Should I be worried now?
Yeah. Well, we've got two. We've got a 21 and an 11, but let's go with the CBDs. CBDs in towns are struggling with antisocial behaviour and street sleepers, etc. What more can be done to keep areas attractive for locals and tourists?
Yeah, so there's a group of ministers, I'm one of them, working on a plan for CBDs. And as someone who spent 30 years of my life in Auckland, I can tell the difference in the CBD over that time. So it's about making sure it's safe and enjoyable for those who live here, work here and visit. None of it's straightforward. There's not going to be one thing that we come out with that is going to solve the problem. But one of the really important distinctions is we tend to say all of the problems are because of homelessness. Well, no, there is a group who are rough sleepers, and we've always had a group of rough sleepers in the CBD. Those numbers are slightly higher than they have been in the past. How do we provide support and assistance to them? And then those others who come into the city or congregate in the city and who are the ones that really do behave in an intimidating way, we have to have a different strategy around them. And that's what we're working on. So we will only make progress in this if we are working closely with the local council, and Minister Brown and Mayor Brown, gets confusing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Are definitely working closely together, and also it's really helpful for businesses to be involved in those conversations. So we will have more to say in the coming weeks about a clear plan, but we have already put an additional 200 housing first places into Auckland, which are really dealing with chronic homelessness, and that is, we've had success in the past with rough sleepers, and supporting them into secure, sustainable, long-term rental accommodation. So there'll be multiple things that we need to do, and we'll have more to say about that in the coming weeks.
Cruising. We're at a lower cruise level this season than previously, and we know it's critical to retail business. Why is this, do you think, and what's the priority to get more cruise visitors?
Yeah, so the numbers are significantly down this season and next. That comes from a range of factors. One is, there was a pretty clear signal from the previous government that not all visitors were welcome, or not all visitors were welcomed equally. And there was an increase in costs and fees that were being applied, often with short notice. And the third element was a lack of consistency or a concern around biofouling and our rules around biofouling, which means that a cruise boat could come in and be turned around and sent away because we weren't able to clean that particular issue in port. So that's why a lot of them decided not to come this season and next, which will have an impact. And so, given that the decisions are made 2 years out, when I came into the role, there was very little I could do about this season or next. What I did do is had a roundtable with the cruise sector, then had a ministerial roundtable, first time ever that has happened, to say, right, what do we do to make sure that the 27 season is a really, really strong return to New Zealand? And that's what we've focused on. So we have now got a solution for the biofouling problem. So we can do import cleaning here at the Port of Auckland. The new cruise terminal, Fast Track, should be open next year before the cruise season starts. We have provided certainty around rules and fees and charges and said we will work across government and we will ensure that where there is a fee increase coming, we will talk to you early, we will involve you in the discussion, and we won't apply charges ahead of your ability to pass it on to your passengers. And so there's other things we've been doing as well, but all of that means, and we've put funding into cruise. I took a cruise delegate to China recently on a trade mission. First time ever a cruise association member has been on a tourism delegation. So we are really, really pushing it. And the response has been fantastic. So the decision to home port in 2027 back in Auckland is fantastic. So I know that's not what the news you want to hear for this year and next, but pun intended, that ship had sailed. So my focus has been really aggressively making sure they come back, and they come back strong in 27.
All right, we're actually out of time for questions, but I'm going to do something a bit unusual and just give you an option for a very last question here, because we've got about 3 that are coming back and forth in terms of ranking. So can you just choose which one you'd like to discuss very quickly? Messaging to Kiwi consumers in general who are hesitating to spend. What would the government be doing on that one? Or Queenstown tourism and infrastructure, maybe the gondola concept, or just making air travel, domestic and international, a bit more affordable. We've only got time for one of those, I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm going to pick the first one, because the really important thing, and I guess I made the comment earlier about green shoots. If you're someone who has, job insecurity, you're up to the wazoo at the moment with your mortgage payments, you're worried about what might happen in the next 12, 18, 24 months, you ain't going to pick that while it's a green shoot. You're going to wait till it's a really, really abundant lettuce before you start plucking it and eating it. And when you think about 40% of New Zealanders with fixed mortgages haven't refixed yet, when we talk about the average mortgage holder, 25-year mortgage, $500,000 mortgage, being $400 a fortnight better off, actually 40% aren't there yet. And I don't know about you, but the first day my new mortgage payment is dropped, I don't go on a spending spree, or I definitely wouldn't right now. So part of what we've got to continue to do collectively is to give New Zealanders hope and encouragement that those green shoots are growing and establishing, to be able to give them the confidence. One of the things, bluntly, in terms of going back to the CBD question, that I have said to my colleagues is we have to do some things urgently, because I want to see the CBD in Auckland flowing for the Christmas retail season. So we can't wait to do some of these things in 3 or 6 months' time, because you want customers in your shops now. So, it will be a bit longer and slower than any of us will like, but really there are incredibly encouraging signs, and I can promise you, every day I get up and go to work as the Minister for Tourism and Hospitality, my job is to bring you more customers, and that's what I'm doing.
All right, I'm sure you'll agree that it's time to thank the Minister for her presentation and for answering questions so well. Thank you.